These are the 20 best free VR games that you can get for your Meta Quest 3 headset. So let's dive right into it. And starting it off with number 1, which is Orion Drift. Now this is a highly ambitious title that comes from the makers of the original Gorilla Tag and Echo Arena. But in here, you will make your way through a massive space station that has so many built-in games and challenges literally everywhere you look. And this can go from their big obstacle course to an intense match of driftball in one of their arenas. But by far the coolest thing is that besides being able to play with up to 75 other players in the same space station, there will also be a bunch of different games that are still going to be unlocked in the near future. But that gets us to number 2, which is known as Liminal. And this is directly also one of the most unique VR titles that you can find. Because in it, you can explore over 100 VR experiences that each have their own unique twists and gameplay to it. And honestly, you just have to try it out for yourself to truly understand the potential that this has. But that gets us to number 3, and that is Frenzies. Now this is a quick and colorful first-person shooter that will have you on the edge of your seat at all time. But the cool thing is that it has a lot of different game modes, and that can go from red light, green light to carrying a pig around and so much more. Now of course, it is also really nice to see a big emphasis on customization, so that it truly lets you personalize your character to your heart's content. But if you want a more relaxing title, then we have number 4, which is Bait. Because this is an old school classic fishing simulator that lets you explore different locations with a total of over 60 types of fish for you to catch. But by far the best feature is that you can play this game with up to 4 other friends, as well as try out one of the many built-in minigames. But if you're looking to burn a bit more calories, then we have number 5, known as Ultimax. And this is probably best described as the Rocket League for virtual reality. But instead of controlling a car, you'll be in charge of a full-on mech robot. And in it, your main goal is to maneuver yourself in such a way that you can use your rocket power fist to score that goal. But if you want to play a more real-life sports game, then we have number 6, known as Gym Class Basketball. Now just as the title implies, this is a free basketball simulator that you can quickly pick up and directly start playing. But it is the realistic physics and the many different built-in features that quickly made this one of the most popular VR games on the Meta Quest store. But it gets us to number 7, which is none other than Mannequin. And unlike the other first-person shooters on this list, this one is just a big game of hide and seek. But the twist is that you will be either of the sides of the 2 agents or the shape-shifting aliens. And that is exactly where things get interesting. Because while the agents can use their scanners to find their targets, the aliens can instead shapeshift into mannequins just like the ones that you see all across the maps. So this unique gameplay idea actually creates some fun interactions, especially if you play it with friends. But that also goes for our number 8, which is Vegas Infinite. And as you might have guessed from its title, this is a casino simulator that lets you challenge your friends and other players in games like poker, blackjack, roulette, or even slots. And in addition to the basic games that you can play in here, you can also have a lot of fun with its endless supply of interactive props. So if you always wanted to know what it would be like to go to a casino, but without taking the risk of losing your hard-earned money, then this one might be for you. Which gets us to number 9, known as Veil. Now this is a straightforward 5v5 battler that quickly became one of the highest rated first-person shooters on the entire Meta Quest store. However, while its social hub and training ground features are completely free to play, there are some other game modes that are sadly still behind a paywall. But either way, you can already have a lot of fun with the things that are included from the start. But that gets us to number 10, which is Cards and Tankards. And this is your cozy collectible card game where you can rip open some packs and battle against some online opponents in a medieval tavern. But what I like about it most is that besides it being completely free to play, the developers also keep putting out updates to add new things or expansions to the game. But before we get to the next 10 must-have free Quest 3 games, let's first have a quick word from the company that made this video possible. Because none other than Cat VR, who are known to create VR treadmills that look like they come straight out of Ready Player One, are taking VR once again to the next level. Because while we normally are limited by the space and boundary system inside our virtual reality experiences, it is Cat VR that has been creating VR treadmills that let you run, crouch, and jump without any limitation. And since their most recent version, that is known as the C2 Core, is compatible with nearly every headset, it is often also considered as as the dream upgrade for any VR setup. And they even go so far that for those hardcore fans, they also have high-end models that include things like haptic feedback or a vehicle hub, making it feel even more realistic, like riding on a horse inside VR. And as a cherry on top, you can also use the code VRelity for a $130 discount on your entire purchase. So for those who are interested, I'll leave a link in the description below. And that gets us to number 11, which is Population 1. Now, this classic title has been around for already a couple of years, but while it used to have a paid version before, you can now actually enjoy it without spending a single cent. And that doesn't just go for a couple of features, but for the entire game. But of course, what makes it stand out from a lot of other titles out there is that in here, you can literally glide or fly off everything that you can see. So if you haven't yet, make sure to give this one a shot. And on number 12, we have Big Screen. Now, while this might not directly be a game itself, this one can still make it possible for you to play your standard flat game screens inside VR. But besides gaming, Big Screen also unlocks the possibility for you to watch movies or shows together with your friends, making this honestly one of the must-have VR applications for anybody. But on number 13, we have Highbow. And in this Battle Royale title, you will be using archery for both your attacks as well as for your movement. Because for example, you can shoot an arrow up into the sky so that you can fly above your enemies and then snipe down on them with some precise shots. Although, just keep in mind that this game is still in early access. And that gets us to number 14, which is known as World. Now in here, you can simply access the complete 3D catalog of Google's Earth images. And that means that this will basically let you travel around the globe and see the most beautiful places that our planet has to offer. But on top of that, they also added in a bunch of cool AI features so that you can ask questions about what you're looking at, to even some game modes that make you guess where you are based on the pictures that you are given. But talking about unique experiences, we have number 15, known as Elixir. Now while this is definitely one of the oldest titles on this list, Elixir is the perfect introduction if you want to try out hand tracking, because in here, you'll become a wizard apprentice that is trying out all these crazy things that you will find in the lab. And that can go from turning your hand into tentacles to even giving yourself some Wolverine claws. Which gets us to number 16, which is known as Blaston. Now this one actually used to be a paid app beforehand as well, but now you can luckily play it completely for free. And in this PvP shooter, you will be shooting some slow motion bullets while you're also moving your entire body to dodge the incoming fire. And while it also has a bunch of customization options, as well as lots of different weapons and styles that you can use, I truly think it's awesome to see that now finally everybody can play it for free. Which gets us to the popular number 17, known as Gorilla Tag. Now of course, it is impossible to make a free VR game list without at least mentioning Gorilla Tag. Because while the simple gameplay and graphics are definitely nothing to write home about, this is the title that showed the VR industry that you can still make an awesome VR game as long as it is fun. But that gets us to number 18, which is Hyperdash. Now unlike many other first-person shooters, Hyperdash takes the speed up to the next level by letting you wheel grind your way through the intense arenas, while also letting you sprint past opponents and dash to your objectives. And on number 19, we have the social VR games. Now this includes things like VR Chat, Rec Room, and even Roblox. Because while all of these titles are completely free, they basically give you endless worlds and games for you to explore. And if you are creative, you can even create your own VR worlds and avatars to your heart's content, making these titles sometimes so popular that these are all that some VR users play. But that gets us to number 20, which is Animal Company. And as you might directly see from the design, this one is heavily inspired by Gorilla Tag, but then tries to turn it into a multiplayer VR adventure. So in it, you'll be exploring these eerie environments either in solo or in public and private lobbies. And while you explore all these caves, sewers, and forests, you can also collect loot and try to defeat the creatures that come your way. And with its bunch of new content that get added nearly every single week, it is clear to see why this one got over 121,000 reviews with an average of 4.9 stars. But that's not all, because besides these free VR titles, there are also some other must-play VR games that you don't want to miss. So click on the video that you see on screen right now to make sure you don't miss out. And of course, stay awesome.